Just like the game, this review is going to be short and painful.
The Last Stand Aftermath is an indie game that, although I was not expecting AAA quality, of course not, it's an indie game, who would, right? It still managed to disappoint me in many ways. The core gameplay is actually really good, surprisingly enough, especially for an indie game. You can see it here as the video plays. The whole objective is to survive basically like small areas of arenas, uh, like towns or whatever, like scavenge, get some items, try not to waste the resources because you do have, of course, guns and you also have melee weapons. Melee weapons are more silent, and the guns are for when things get hairy. But this game is, oh, I mean, it could have been something great. It could have been the start of a new franchise from the way I see it. But sadly, that was not the case. Why? Because although it does have the core elements, sort of like a Resident Evil game where it's survival horror, where you gotta manage your resources and get through hordes of zombies, survive certain areas, and progress through the story. That's how you would expect this game to go, but that was not the case. Why? Because this game doesn't have a story. It just has random survivors in a camp that you don't care about because they don't give you any backstory. They don't tell you who they are or, why you should even care for them at all. The game just throws you out there and be like, well, you gotta go search for resources because if not, we're gonna be hungry. I mean, alright, I guess, right? I'm gonna go search for some resources and whatever. And so I go into this first map, and alright, there's zombies everywhere. You gotta try to avoid as many as you can so you don't attract too much attention. Because you have a limited stamina, so you can't really run away from them the entire map. You're gonna have to eventually stand and attack, and start wasting resources, either bullets or the stamina from the melee weapons themselves. You also have to search for gas. In order to progress forward, you have to search for gas for your car, because if not, you just get stuck there. And like the core gameplay, like I said, is very solid. With a couple of fixes, this could have been that Resident Evil sort of thing, in the sense of survival horror and managing resources. This could have been great, but then you don't care for none of these characters. You play as random generic character one, and when that one dies, the just go back to the original base, and they just throw another character out there. Be like, all right, random generic character two, go out there, search for resources, and if you die, be ready, random character three, because you're gonna be the next one out there. And it's just dumb. You end up not caring for any of them. There's no story. There's no nothing that intrigues you and keeps you here. The gameplay quickly becomes pretty boring because you're not really progressing to anything. You just go from this part of the map to the next part of the map to do the same thing without any real objectives, just getting the resources, get the gas, get the melee weapons, the bullets or whatever. And it's just dumb. I mean, when I first played this game, the game had a couple, like a small roadmap, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll find some survivors along the way. I wasn't expecting too much, like maybe one or two things, because it's a small indie game, and I knew that going in, but it just had none of that. You just finish this map, you go on to the second one, and it's the same thing. There's no survivors to help there, to escort to your car or anything. Just get the resources, avoid the zombies, move on. And I managed to finish the roadmap, right? The roadmap usually divides into a couple of roads. It goes from the easiest roads to the hardest roads, and of course, the harder the road, the more resources there are. But I found that you should just go to the easy ones because the hard ones at times make it pretty much impossible for you to do anything, especially if you go in there with a decent amount of resources. You're gonna have to come out with pretty much nothing because in order to get the good stuff, you gotta kill hordes of zombies that are literally around it, and it's not well balanced. It's not a game that's well balanced at all. And if there had been a story, there had been something to intrigue me to keep me here, then I feel like the game could have been 10 times better. Even if it was at a small scale, I feel like that would have been the start of a franchise right there because people would have been hooked to it, be like, all right, there's this character. And this character, let's say he's a father, sort of like Joel taking care of Ellie in The Last of Us, right? Like, just have this father trying to take care of his son or his daughter or something, or anything, any other story element you could have included here, make it more interesting, make it worth your time, make you feel like you're doing something every time you're progressing. But at the end, it just ends up feeling the same way. There's nothing new here, nothing to explore. It's just going from map to map. And another thing is that the game randomly generates these maps, right? So there's no room for any story elements and nothing to be kind of consistent. Although it's good in the sense of, oh, it keeps everything fresh every time you come around because there's no story elements, there's no characters for you to give a shit about. The game just doesn't feel good, you know? It just keeps making new maps, and yes, the maps are fresh, but you just don't care. It's like every now and again along the road you might find like a package, but if you do try to get that package, it kind of alerts hordes all around, and at times I found that it was impossible to get the package because while you need to jump over fences and stuff at times, like you get stuck in there. Like the moment you pull that lever or push the button, whatever it was, I don't remember very well. The hordes just come out of nowhere, out of the woodworks, and a lot of the times they don't even give you a chance to get out of there. Like while you're trying to get all the stuff as quickly as possible, which you can't get everything because remember you have limited storage as well. Like at times, it's just not fast enough. You can't get everything, or just look through the stuff at a decent enough pace where you can say, all right, this is good, this is bad. Like you gotta go lightning fast. You gotta get everything immediately and just run out. You cannot wait there because they'll just surround you and you're dead. There's just no way to survive that. Even if you try, if you have an infinite amount of resources, there's a good chance you could still die or at least come out with very low health. You need a lot of resources to get out of that situation. And remember, this is a game where you're supposed to manage resources. The game's just not balanced for that. And so I always just skipped the packages because I knew I was either gonna die and then lose everything and I had to start all over again with another random character I don't care about, or I got some stuff but I had to waste so many resources to get it that it was just not worth it. And so this game ended up being a disappointment because I saw the potential and it could have been something. It could have added characters I gave a shit about. It could have made a good story. It could have made something impactful, something in small doses. I'm not saying you got to do a triple A game with all the the cutscenes and everything with the high budgets. Nah, like this right here that you have it's a great basis. See, here's the map. You can see it. It's a small map. You could have made each and every one of these locations unique. Have something interesting in all of them. Have maybe a partner in your game and that you can interact with them throughout the game. Something to make it fun and interesting and not generic as it is. That's why I put in the title The Last of Our Ideas, not The Last Stand Aftermath. Because the game runs out of ideas so fast and it becomes repetitive immediately. That's why I don't recommend buying this game. It just feels like you wasted your money. That's how I feel at least. There was nothing here for me to say this is great. As it stands now, the only elements that I hear are things that I can say this could have been great, but it is not great as it stands. Ironically, given that the name, you know, Aftermath, uh, Stand or I already forgot the name. That's just how forgettable this game is. I had to Google search the name before I made this video. I forgot. And even now in the middle of making this video, I forgot the name. This game is just forgettable. And it's sad because I've seen better games, indie games, I mean, that have been able to do it better, that have longevity, and that they're just worth the money. An example would be Them's Fighting Hurts. That's an indie game that was, I believe, part of a crowdfund. I believe that's what it's called. And that game is amazing for what they made. Like literally, it was a small group of dudes that made that game. You can even search out the small documentary that they uploaded about the game and how it came to life. And it's just incredible how you see that. Even Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight started as an indie game, a shitty, unbalanced, messed up game that still is pretty unbalanced, but at least the graphics are good and you can enjoy it for the most part. And it doesn't get repetitive. There's a lot of replayability in those games, and both of those examples that I gave. There's not a lot of replayability in this game. That you get about half an hour. That's all you get. You get about half an hour. That's it of gameplay. After that, you start seeing the same things over and over, and it just becomes boring. You just don't care. And I ended up just uninstalling the game because, man, like you finish the map, the map that appeared earlier, and you just end up in another similar map. And so you could finish an eternity of these maps, and nothing would matter. Nothing you get matters because you're not getting these resources for nobody that you care about. You could just stack up an infinite amount of resources, and then what? There's no game over. There's no. The game just repeats on a cycle, and it's just boring. There's just nothing really to do. And the thing is that the base is here. Like, all the elements are here to make something amazing out of this indie game, something memorable, something that could have literally started an entire franchise that people would have enjoyed. But the developers, or at least the suits, let's say the suits, right? Although they're an indie, an indie studio, let's just say the head of the studio, they messed it up. They really messed it up. The gameplay is here, but the ideas are sadly lacking. I do not recommend this game. I give it about a 3 out of 10. At most a 4 out of 10, but really it's just a 3. There's not enough. There's not enough content here. Oh, and there's a bug too that stops you from pausing the game. No, that's not a feature like other, horror games. It's a bug because at the start of the game I could always just pause, but at times the game gets glitched and you can't pause, and it's just weird and awkward. It's like, why is this a thing, right? It is an indie game. I don't expect the best thing ever, but I also expect polish. That's something that isn't filled and riddled with bugs. Even if it's an indie game, you expect it to function. How are you expecting us to care about your game? How you're expecting us to enjoy your game, care about it, support it, if the game is riddled with bugs. In this case, it's not absolutely completely filled with bugs, but that pause bug, and there's other times where the game has, well, actually, yes, the game has crashed a couple of times when I was playing. I never got to, how can I say, because I'm recording with the PlayStation program. You know, the thing that PlayStation brings to record. So I never really got a chance to record it actually crashing, but the game crashed like 4 times in the amount of time I played. I think I played it for like 2 hours and it crashed like 4 times. So you know, games riddled with bugs, and there's just not enough ideas here, and it's just a shame because the core elements are here to make something great. It's just the ideas were not there, and the execution, sure as hell, was not there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.